Hey guys, welcome back to A Decadent Fare. Thanks for watching. So today we are actually going to be doing we're back in the kitchen first of all. I know I've had like 2 videos where I haven't been in the kitchen, but I felt like making some stuff today. So we're going to be making something that's very important to every kitchen, and I've mentioned it before in my blog, the 5 ingredients that everybody should have in their kitchen, and that is stock. It is the fundamental part of every recipe that you make, usually if it's savory and it's got a liquid in it at all. And it just adds so much depth to your recipe. But this method that I'm using to make the beef stock applies to any other stock that you could make. If you're making vegetable stock, if you're making chicken stock, if you're making seafood stock, you're pretty much going to be doing the exact same thing. But we're going to be doing a very simple stock, and the reason for that is because if you want to use it for several different recipes, you want to freeze it. I like to start with something that's pretty basic, not too many herbs in there, because you can add those in later. Those don't need to be boiled for hours and hours and hours to get the point across. But we want to leach out the flavors of the bone and of the aromatics that we're using today. So stay tuned. Okay, so we have a big ass bone right here, and the first step of this is pretty simple. We're just going to add some oil to this. Some people may say olive oil. I would not add olive oil to this because we're actually going to be roasting this for a long time, and I don't think that olive oil has a good enough smoke point, a high enough smoke point to really handle all of that. Olive oil has too good of a flavor to just be throwing it into the oven to kill all that flavor. And so we're just doing some good old wholesome canola oil. That'll do the trick just fine. I'm just kind of coating it in oil, and I'm going to throw it in my pot. So I would typically like to do a pot that was a little less deep for this part, but as you know, I am homeless at the moment, and this is what I have to work with. But I think it actually may work out well because I can now use one pot to do everything. So there's my bone, and yes, I have other ingredients. Some people may add the vegetables in at this point, but I'm just going to add the bone because I wasn't able to. I went to the store at the very last minute, like right before they're about to close, so I wasn't able to get them to cut the bone. You can get this bone. I just went up to the meat market and I asked for beef bones, and usually they will be able to cut it in half, which is a little bit easier because if you cut it, you get some more of the marrow, and that's what we're trying to leach out, all those nutrients inside of the bone. But since I went so late, they weren't able to do any of that. So now I just have a big ass bone, and we're going to put in this pot, and we're just going to make some alterations to make this work. Alright, so that's my oven, saying that it's all preheated. I have the oven at 375 degrees, and that's one of the alterations we're making. So typically I would roast my bones at 400 degrees, but since it's a bigger bone, it has to roast for longer in order to kind of get all the way, to penetrate all the way through the bone. And so we're going to do it at 375 because we're going slower and lower for such a large piece of, not meat, bone. And so I'm just going to throw this in here and go about my business. Alright, so our bones have been, our one bone, our big bone, has been roasting for about an hour. You see it's a little brown. There's no way for me to get this out, apparently. Okay, I just want to show y'all that if you look on the edge here in the pot, you can see that there's some stuff starting to accumulate in it. And that's good because that is actually marrow that is leaching out of the bone there, and that's what we want. And so we're just going to keep cooking this for a little bit longer, but I'm actually going to add the vegetables now. I didn't add them to begin with because since this is such a large bone, we have to make accommodations, and it's going to have to cook for a lot longer dry roasting than I actually want my vegetables to do. So now that we're an hour into this, I can add the vegetables at this point. I have these little baby carrots. Aren't they adorable? We're not making a lot of stock, so I didn't need a lot of carrots. The thing I was actually looking for was these. These are the carrot tops because I'm going to add those to the stock later. And only the baby carrots have the tops on them. But yeah, so the vegetables are actually going to release liquid, and so the stuff that's stuck to the pan, it'll slightly loosen up, and we won't have to worry so much about anything getting stuck to the pan. But there will be some stuff stuck to the pan, and that is also okay because after we do this, we're going to release all of that goodness on the bottom of the pot called fond, because it's one of the key ingredients to our stock. And so I have onion. I had a whole onion in here. Everything's rinsed. I kept the skin on it because it adds more color. And it's not going to hurt it because we're going to strain the stock. And then I have garlic. It's still got the skin on it as well. It's not going to hurt it. It'll add more color because it'll brown up pretty nicely. And I'm just going to kind of stir this around to get the oil coated on there. And then we're going to throw this back in the oven for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And then we'll start boiling. Check that out. That's some golden bone right there. That's exactly what you want to see after you finish roasting. It was in the oven for about 4 hours. And that's what we got. Still, of course, ideally, you would have smaller bones. I should stop complaining about that, but I just wish I had a smaller bone right now. Smaller bone. All right, so now that our bones are roasted along with our vegetables, we're going to go ahead and just add some water. So, this is a cold pot, as you can see, I'm touching it. So it did not just come out of the oven, clearly. I had my lovely assistant, aka my sister, take this out of the pot when it was finished roasting, and then she left it for me for when I got back from work to finish it. So when you do this, first of all, make sure you're using oven mitts, duh, and you're going to hear a loud sizzle when you add all this cold liquid because that's what hot oil does. Anytime you add liquid to hot oil, you're going to hear a lot of sizzling, but man, actually, I love that sound. I don't know why, but I do. So just turn your stove on medium, and you're going to add your water to it. Pretend you hear a sizzle. That's it. There is no specific amount of water that you need to add to this. I mean, if you go look at some cookbook, they're going to tell you 6 cups of water to 1 pound of meat bones, blah, blah, blah. But really, you just need to cover your ingredients in liquid. And you're going to have to keep adding liquid to it. And so what you could do is add more liquid and maybe have it, for this amount, I could probably add enough liquid up to here. So it would be about double the amount of liquid I would actually need because it's going to reduce down, especially if you're cooking it for 24 hours. All this liquid that's here right now will have evaporated by then. And then all of that evaporated liquid is going to have a bunch of condensed flavor in it. And you're going to add more water to it. So like I said, there's no specific amount of water. You just have to kind of watch it, add water, or you can start with, I could probably fill this whole pot up right now because I'm leaving this on for a good 12 hours. And so now we just wait for it to boil. Once it starts boiling, you're just going to reduce the heat and you're going to let that thing simmer for anywhere from 8 to 24 hours. Or actually not boiling, it's moving around, working on it. But this is a good time to add your herbs. What I have here is parsley. This isn't the actual leaf, this is just the stems. So as you see, stock can actually be made with a lot of leftover ingredients that you have in your kitchen. So if you make a chicken, this is what I usually do. So I usually make chicken stock. What I would normally do is cut up the chicken, like get a whole chicken, debone it. So take off the breast, take off the thighs, and then there's a carcass left over. That is perfect for stock. Don't throw that away. Even if you don't feel like doing all of this, at least just boil the bone itself, the carcass itself, and you can use that by itself and add other flavors to it later. Just freeze it. But what I'm doing is I'm adding the parsley stems. So if you have parsley, we always have leftover parsley, just throw that in there. And I have the carrot tops right here, and I'm going to throw that in there. It's going to fortify it with flavor. A little bit of, well, the parsley won't give it a lot of flavor. The carrot tops won't give it so much flavor, but that has a lot of nutrients in it. So this is a good time to start adding those nutrients to your stock. So it's not just chicken liquid, which actually the bones itself have a lot of nutrients in it. And peppercorns, whole peppercorns. I would not add ground peppercorn to this because this is going to boil for a really long time. I don't know, I guess I just feel like it reserves the flavor a little bit more if you add whole peppercorns. And so I just added like a handful of that to it. If you want to go to my website, decadentfare.com, I will give you different variations of stock because like I said, this is a very simple stock and there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. I added carrot tops this time, but you can also add the tops of beets to your stock. I don't know about adding the actual beets. You could, but it's going to be a really different flavor if you do so. But the tops of a lot of root vegetables work perfect in a stock. Hey, okay, so I just woke up. It's 7 o'clock in the morning and my stock is boiling. It looks good. I've actually had to get up a couple times throughout the night and just add some liquid to it, and I've filled it up all the way to the top of the pot. It's going to continue to boil. I want mine to, for chicken bones, it's pretty easy because they'll tell you to boil it until the bones become soft, but a beef bone is never going to become soft. I guess it'll become softer, but not really noticeably soft. So I'm just going to boil it until I got to go live my life. Alright, so we have finally finished our beef stock. That was a total of 14 hours of boiling. And I know that sounds like a lot, but like I said, if you just do this on a Sunday where you're going to be home cleaning all day and you just start it, that's all there is to it. It's not like you have to stand there and stir it. You really don't have to do anything except for add some water every couple of hours if it reduces enough. And this right here is the bone. I wanted to show you guys. I said that for a chicken bone, you want the bone to get really soft, and of course if you touch this part of the big ass bone, it's not going to be soft. But if you do touch this part, it's very soft. Like, I can actually poke a hole in it, and that was not soft like that before. And so that means that we did our best at trying to get every little bit of goodness out of this bone. So now I'm just going to let this chill. Right now, there's a bunch of oil in there because there's actually fat inside of the bone. The marrow is pretty fatty. And so you can let this broth, the stock, chill for a couple of hours, and then the fat will settle on top into a nice thick layer, and so you can just scrape that right off. Don't bother trying to scrape off the fat while you're in the middle of it boiling, because you're just wasting a lot of time, of your own time, and nobody wants to do that. I've seen people do that before, and I was actually in school, we actually had to do that, but you don't have to do that. Make your life easier. So this will go into the refrigerator, and when I get back from work, I'll just scrape that off and I will start cooking whatever I want to make with it. So thanks for watching. If you want any tips, any more specific tips, I know this was kind of just me showing you how I go about it, but if you would like to go on to decadentfare.com, I will have some more specific tips on how to make your stocks, your chicken stock, your beef stock, your seafood stock, or your vegetable stock. So that way you can follow that maybe a little bit easier and enjoy. Let me know what recipes you're making with your stock at home.